When will altcoin season start? That is a question that many cryptocurrency traders and investors are asking themselves. People are disappointed by the altcoin performance so far in this crypto cycle, which started 2022. And we want to explore whether there's still a chance for an altcoin season. It's going to be a very important video, so let's go. Hello, my name is Ben and I'm the founder of MCO Global, and on this channel we take a look at different price charts, assets from an Elliott wave point of view, which is a sentiment-based analysis method. Apologies, today I'm in a hotel, so it's a slightly different environment. From tomorrow onwards we are back in the usual environment. Now in this video I want to talk about the concept of an altcoin season. I want to explore a few concepts around global liquidity, quantitative tightening, and from a sentiment point of view, from an Elliott wave point of view as well, why are we seeing this weird performance in the altcoin sector? Whereas people generally seem to believe that money is shifting from Bitcoin to Ethereum, to altcoins, then to microcaps, as it's always been the case. But I have said repeatedly that it might not be a cycle as cycles before. The cycle is already different. Bear in mind that Bitcoin has formed an all-time high before the halving. That never happened before. So that already broke the thesis of many four-year cycle believers that the crypto sector is always, moving in very predictable four-year cycles. It's not the case. Always just one thing about that. It's one point I want to mention about that. Do you really believe the market? Do you really believe the market is going to give the majority of investors and traders an advantage? Just imagine really the crypto cycle would always move in four-year cycles. That's a little bit naive, I would say. It will change at some point. I mean, the four-year cycle theory, look, I'm following it, or at least I'm observing it, I'm watching it. I don't really believe it. It is something that happened before, but how many cycles did we have? I mean, it is not statistically significant, and certainly not statistically significant enough to be helpful to create a trading strategy. And again, whenever the majority of market participants believe they have an advantage, the market is going to take it away from them. Keep that in mind. The market will never give the majority of participants the advantage. So just because of that one reason, the four-year cycle theory will fail eventually. Maybe it's already failed. We will only know afterwards. So I'm always a fan of staying in the now. We stay in the present. We take a look at the price structures right now. We see that a lot of altcoins are not performing. That's something that before we've only seen really cycle over cycle. I've always said that most altcoins will die eventually. Most altcoins do not outperform Bitcoin cycle over cycle. And within a bullish cycle, altcoins are typically running at some point, but that rally, so-called altcoin season, is when Bitcoin dominance is going down. This is typically when you see a lot of altcoins run. But we want to explore a few things, why this hasn't happened yet and why this cycle seems so different to many. So I want to share with you first my long-term outlook for Bitcoin. You know it already probably, but I want to explain why this affects altcoins. And then I will talk about a few factors that we have to watch from a geopolitical standpoint or perspective that could have an impact on altcoin prices going forward, especially now that Trump has become president. And then we'll also take a look at Bitcoin dominance and to understand the structure there, as well as the DXY. So let's go. So something that we want to talk about here is the long-term Bitcoin chart. I mean, I talked about it before. I will not spend too much time on it. But we already talked in previous updates about the fact, in my opinion, or let's say it's an assumption, that Bitcoin is in a larger fifth wave. So I've said as far as I can remember, I've said it pretty much in the beginning of this cycle, or at least in the first few months of this cycle, that the altcoins will probably not perform as many people think. And this is related to, and you can see it here, to the overall sentiment. I mean, Elliott wave is a sentiment-based analysis method, and what you can see here is that in previous cycles where the altcoins were, like all altcoins were rallying, right? All altcoins were rallying, literally. I mean, there are few exceptions of coins that really didn't, but back then there were not that many coins around. I mean, Correct me if I'm wrong, but I did read it recently. There are more than 10 million tokens these days. I mean, where's all that money? I mean, that's just another thing. It's just diluted, okay? That's one. There's just not enough money to pump all of these coins. However, from an Elliott wave point of view, my thesis, at least it's a thesis, is that in the previous cycle, we had a third wave. I mean, that was part of a main third wave here. Okay, we were within the fifth wave, within a third wave, but it was still a larger degree third wave, very aggressive sentiment. And again, before that, 2012 to 2013, yeah, third wave, third of a third wave, very aggressive. This year was a fifth wave of the same larger third wave, very aggressive sentiment. Then here we were also within a third wave. That was the rally 2020 to 2021. Well, now the situation is a bit different. You see it based on the Bitcoin chart, that the structure is far less aggressive than what it was before. It's far more choppy. It's well defined, but it's far less aggressive. Just alone the angle is different. Yeah. And the third wave, even here we had an internal third wave in that move up that started in 2022. My thesis is and has been that this is a fifth wave of a fifth wave of a fifth wave. Okay, still within a larger third wave, but we pretty much are now in a wave 5 of 5 of 5. In a fifth wave, momentum is typically reducing. Uncertainty is coming in. We see a lot of diagonal structures, not impulses, and that has an impact on sentiment. It's just not the aggressive, hype-driven sentiment that we have seen in previous cycles. That is my main that is my thesis why the altcoins aren't performing that much. For me, it all comes down to sentiment, right? It's not the sentiment for these altcoins. Yeah, there are many other reasons. Yeah, there are many other reasons people could, or we could define together. There are many things I think have an impact, but they all have an impact on sentiment. And the Elliott wave structure allows us to understand that just by looking at the structures. In a fifth wave, the sentiment is just not the type of sentiment that drives altcoins to crazy moon prices. Some altcoins, yep, localized maybe, okay. Meme coins, the sentiment was very aggressively bullish in this cycle, but also the meme coin cycle could be nearly done. So, but overall, from a macro point of view, the sentiment is just not there for this altcoin season. In addition to that, there are just too many tokens, it's all diluted, many other reasons. So let's talk about the fundamental side a little bit, like from a geopolitical or macroeconomic point of view. Okay, so let's take a look at the DXY. Now, the DXY measures the strength of the US dollar relative to other currencies, right? I mean, overall, from a geopolitical point of view, the US dollar has a special position among currencies, surely, because it's sort of seen as the world's currency, to a degree at least. Well, that might change at some point, but it still is the case. And historically, a rising DXY has been bad for risk assets and specifically altcoins, because a strong USD makes risk assets less attractive. People rather hold their money in currency. Now, we have to say that in this cycle, I find that Bitcoin has been holding up really surprisingly well, despite a strong DXY. I mean, you can see the DXY is quite strong. It's going up still. So the question is, with Bitcoin holding up well, why are altcoins suffering, and could that change? Now, first of all, a rising DXY indicates tightening financial conditions, really. So investors prefer to hold cash over speculative assets in these conditions that we have at the moment. And Bitcoin, I think, especially from this cycle, I think something has changed. More and more institutions are getting involved, nations are getting involved. Just a few days ago, I made the video about the Bitcoin reserve potentially in the US that might be coming, right? So it's got a different status. There are 8 ETFs now. It's maybe even seen as a digital gold, right? So the DXY Bitcoin correlation, negative correlation, might not really apply anymore, but it could still apply to altcoins, because while sort of Bitcoin is viewed as some kind of a store of value, altcoins aren't really treated that way. They are more like high risk bets, so they get sold off first. And when the DXY is strong, people move to safer assets, right? Like Bitcoin even. Maybe it's sentiment shift. Bitcoin is seen as kind of a safe haven to a degree in the current economic climate, together with gold possibly. And people also go rather in cash, in these uncertain environments. And of course, we have we have very uncertain environments. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can go wrong and could really trigger very negative consequences. I mean, there are many things. I don't want to get into this, but we all know the world is pretty much in shambles. Now, in these environments, altcoins being speculative, they get hit the hardest because investors reduce exposure to risk. So look, the DXY, while it has gone up kind of long term, or at least since like 2011, 2012, since 2022, since when this crypto cycle has started, it's been going up also locally. But I think there is a possibility that the DXY could drop from here into the low $90 region. So from an Elliott wave point of view, I see this as a top in a third wave in the white scenario. This was 2022, October. We had a dip, strong dip, which I label wave A of a fourth wave. The fourth wave could end in the low $90 region. This year was a B wave rally. So throughout this entire crypto cycle, we could say, actually it's been going up, okay, overall, but there could be this drop that should be around the corner. Well, it could still go higher, maybe towards $110, $111. So I think the DXY value is quite on the high end at the moment. The dollar is strong. That could change based on this Elliott wave analysis. We haven't topped yet, most likely, and I won't get into the micro here today, but there is a chance for a C wave down to occur into the low $90 region. Now, Trump has kind of sent mixed signals if he prefers a weaker dollar or a stronger dollar. I'd rather, from what I've heard, I think he rather prefers a weaker dollar because he wants to reduce the trade deficit, and a lower or a weaker dollar can help with that. But there are also reasons why he wants a stronger dollar. So he's kind of sent mixed signals, I think, with regards to the dollar strength, tariffs and everything. This is something we have to pay close attention to. But from an Elliott wave point of view, I think this DXY drop, which might be around the corner, could be good for altcoins, potentially, right? I mean, for me, the sentiment in the crypto sector is really important. I'm not so much paying attention to the DXY. I'm just here for you I'm looking for things that we can pay attention to together as community that could trigger an altcoin season. I don't want to generate hope, right? It's all about, okay, the DXY is starting to drop. Let's pay close attention to the altcoins. It hasn't started to drop yet. Now let's also talk about liquidity and economic policies. So why money is tight, right? People talk about money is tight. The Fed is still engaged in quantitative tightening. So let's talk about interest rates and the impact on crypto. Now, interest rates have been high for an extended period. Obviously, over the last few years, the Fed has increased interest rates. And this obviously has reduced liquidity in the market to a degree. When interest rates are high, then investors are less likely to take risks, slowing down altcoin investments. Now, recently they've started to reduce again, but we are definitely not at the level from where we started, right? Now let's talk about M2 money supply as well. M2 refers to the total amount of money in circulation. So including cash, savings, deposits, and accessible funds. Now, over the past year, M2 has been shrinking in the US, which means that less money is flowing into risk assets like altcoins. Just less money available, right? And tight liquidity conditions mean less speculation. Altcoins rely heavily on speculation to perform well, right? Again, it all comes down to sentiment, but these factors certainly don't help with positive sentiment. It's quite interesting how this all comes together. Now, how could then also how do Trump's tariffs and trade policies affect liquidity? Now, trade wars and tariffs certainly create economic uncertainty. We only talked yesterday about how the economic uncertainty is actually beneficial for the gold market, right? So we talked about that in yesterday's video, but the uncertainty certainly reduces business spending and global liquidity, because if there's uncertainty, people and businesses rather hold on to cash and they don't spend it that well or easily. Then in addition to that, tariffs, and we talked about the tariffs in the previous video, they make products more expensive as well. They force businesses to cut costs, reduce investments in riskier areas like crypto, right? It is what it is, and just people, people have to spend more if they have to pay more for imported goods due to the tariffs. So they might need to save more to be able to afford the goods. They rather not spend money on risk assets then. I don't know how much the effect is, but again, it all comes down to sentiment for me, but it certainly will have an effect, right? If tariffs are placed on some products, they will become more expensive, driving up inflation. Now you can say, okay, but then the companies will have to produce in the US. Yeah, but they can't do that from, within a week or so. It will take time, maybe even years. So, and then if tariffs and economic restrictions continue, obviously global liquidity will probably stay tight, which then directly impact altcoins. It can impact altcoins at least, right? So, and on top of that, many investors over the years, I think, have learned that most altcoins don't live up to their promises. A lot of people lost money. There have been promises, still like the best metaverse games and everything. Nothing has really come to fruition. Nothing has really, there's no game there that people are crazy about, right? And there's no game. There were so many promises, metaverse, people can all meet there in virtual spaces. A lot of that was just like promises that were broken, and people now realize that. And in the past, people speculated on hype and white papers. I haven't really heard much about tokenomics in this cycle. I haven't really heard about white papers much. I remember in the last cycle, it was, oh, well, this is a great team. Look, they've got a team. And the team is on, LinkedIn. Well, that must be a serious project. Let's all invest. You don't hear that anymore because people have learned that's just ridiculous, right? There's no fundamentals in crypto. They don't have really any value because most projects are really experimental. And the only fundamentals that really count when it really comes to businesses is really like cash flow, financials, and you don't hear about these. These projects don't have to like stock market or stock market listed businesses or stock exchange listed businesses or registered businesses. Well, they have to be transparent about their income and everything, cash flow. These crypto projects, in most cases, they are not, and there's just no fundamental value there really for most of these. And utility isn't really a fundamental value, it's a vision, that's all, right? So again, all of this has eroded trust in many altcoins, meaning there's less speculative enthusiasm than in previous cycles. So I think with all of that, there are some best practices for handling altcoins that I want to talk about. First of all, risk management is absolute key. So altcoins should not be the majority of your crypto portfolio. Now, if you're comfortable with more risk, feel free to do it. If you make more money with it, absolutely. For most people, altcoin exposure, that's just my view, shouldn't be higher than 20% of their crypto portfolio. If it's higher for you, fair enough. If you're successful with it, all power to you. But I can tell you that for most people, it's not something they should do. In addition to that, most altcoins will eventually fail. So cycle over cycle, altcoins lose out. Just compare altcoin to Bitcoin chart. Compare. Overall, and there's only maybe a handful of coins that has outperformed Bitcoin cycle over cycle. And even then, only time will tell if that will continue. But you don't want to drag your bag into a bear market because Bitcoin will outperform it, okay? And Bitcoin is less risky, and we don't know if these altcoins will recover in the next bullish cycle. Always use stop losses to manage risk and avoid major drawdowns. If you don't use a stop loss, the position size needs to be small enough to manage risk. It is more important than ever, I believe, because of the situation that we just talked about, that risk management is more important than ever. You can't expect just all altcoins to rally. We have to focus on specific setups, which we try to identify with the Elliott wave method. Is it perfect? No, but it's all we've got, and the altcoin space is very experimental. So it's a great tool to identify high reward, low risk setups. It's a great risk management tool. It's less predictive, it's more like a risk management tool, especially in the altcoin space where there is not a lot of data there for most of these charts. Elliott wave is a really good risk management tool. Again, less predictive, the less data we have that we can use from the past, and most altcoin charts aren't very old, the more important the risk management aspect of the Elliott wave method. Then again, look for strong setups, avoid chasing hype-driven projects, because if they've already rallied, you're probably too late. And if an altcoin has no real use case, well, it can just be a pump and dump one. Even with use case, right? That's not even something that we really should focus on, because use cases, there have been so many good projects with good use cases, but where are they now value-wise? Many of them haven't really delivered, right? Some have, but you can't rely on that really. Okay, so let's talk about what needs to happen for an altcoin rally. Now, for me, from an Elliott wave point of view, I need to see sentiment shift. I see that in the charts when we see a 5-wave move up and a 3-wave move down. we don't see that at the moment across the sector. Well, that can change quickly. Once I see that, I always stay in the present. I will make you aware. But from a dominance point of view, Bitcoin dominance point of view, we need to see Bitcoin dominance go down. So Bitcoin dominance is just compares the Bitcoin market cap with the market cap of I think high with the market cap of a portion of the altcoin sector. And you can see here that we are in a rally. We have been in a rally throughout this entire cycle. So throughout this cycle, there has been a major rally. Now in previous cycles here, we had a similar rally between 2018 and 2019. And then in 2020 and 2021, Bitcoin dominance went down. We haven't seen that, okay? But Bitcoin dominance is approaching key resistance. We're now in Fibonacci resistance, and we're approaching the highs of 2021 and 2019. So ultimately, I pay attention to a few things. From a chart point of view, I pay attention to the altcoin sector charts, individual charts. Okay, I have the overview, yes, but we cannot ignore sector-wide tendencies, but I pay close attention to individual charts. They tell me if there is a setup. But if I don't see good setups across the sector, then it is typically unlikely that one single altcoin will outperform, right? But it still gives us good risk management values and parameters. But I'm looking at the charts, all of these charts, all the altcoin charts, and if I see good setups and reactions to support levels across the sector, that could be a start of an altcoin rally. But at the same time, Bitcoin dominance needs to do a little bit more to the downside. At the moment, the trend is clearly still up. Resistance is 64.4%, 68.5%, and we just need that move to the downside. And I think it would be certainly realistic that at some point it goes down to maybe 40%, 45%, but it just hasn't started yet. So this is something that I'm watching on a daily basis. This needs to start dropping. And we just talked about a few factors that could impact that. Well, it's certainly market sentiment, but market sentiment is shaped by different things. So one of them could be liquidity in the markets. How much money do people have? Uncertainty in the market. So there are certain things that need to happen from a, let's say, geopolitical point of view as well. Now I think there are a few things that we have to pay attention to. So Trump, new in office, the first couple of months, the first 100 days really, are probably shaped by a lot of action. I don't think we will see that going forward in that pace. I mean, he's getting a lot of stuff done. Is it all good or not? I don't want to talk about that in this video here. But there is a lot that he's doing, okay? So I don't think we will see that pace continue over the coming months. Maybe in the first 100 days, they clearly planned that they will win and they prepared. I think they did a good job there. I think it was different when Trump became president last time. I think he didn't even expect last time that he would win. So he wasn't that prepared. This time he's prepared and he's getting stuff done. But we don't know really his stance towards many of these things. But then he sent mixed signals, for example, on the strength of the dollar that he wants and so on. But there is a lot that we have to pay attention to. The focus is on the US, I think in the next 100 days, and things can change quickly. The crypto sector is already very volatile, so it could just accelerate that volatility. Then in the first 2 years, right, they probably want to get a lot of disruptive stuff done. I don't think they want to do that in the last year when the elections take place for the next period, all right? So they will probably get a lot of stuff done in the first 2 years, and then after 2 years it will be hopefully a little bit smoother. There will be a lot more certainty probably, but expect a lot of uncertainty, I think, in the first couple of years. So that uncertainty will reflect in the market. So I'm not sure how well the altcoins will do. But again, an altcoin rally can happen within a few weeks. All we need is a catalyst. We need the right sentiment. Typically when the sentiment is on a local level bearish, there might be bearish news, the charts are in a support area, and then we get a catalyst, it could drive prices higher. But again, just pay attention to the setups, because when you get positioned, when the market is already running, you get 20, 30, 40% in a day, it's typically too late, okay? So you have to very much focus on these charts. And there are local setups that play out here and there, but I have to tell you, it is a challenging market. It is a challenging market. We just need a little bit more certainty, which at the moment just isn't there, which is why the altcoins are suffering so much, I think from a fundamental point of view, which again affects sentiment. Now, there are a few good things, I think, in the works. I think the Fed, there are some plans that the Fed will stop quantitative tightening late 2025. mid to late 2025. Because the markets, however, are forward-looking, this could already have a positive impact on altcoins at some point along the way. We might not need to wait until late 2025. Then in addition to that, if Trump pushes for a weaker dollar, which he might do in order to reduce the trade deficit of the US, then, and if this would be in line with my DXY forecast for a lower DXY in the $90 region, which won't happen tomorrow, right? But it will happen at some point. At least that's my assumption. And that could be good for liquidity. So just a reminder, if the DXY goes down, people are inclined to take more risk. And if Bitcoin is still in the bullish cycle when that happens, there is a chance that money flows from Bitcoin towards altcoins. And in turn, if then liquidity increases, investors will speculate more. So I don't think altcoin season is dead, but it needs the right conditions to return. I don't see altcoin season at the moment. It clearly hasn't started yet. I mean, while I record this video, altcoins are in support areas, but most of them don't look very healthy. We might need a greater reset before an altcoin season happens. I just want to make sure that, and that was the purpose of this video, that you know about the things that we have to pay attention to. We need a shift in sentiment. At the moment, from an Elliott wave point of view, sentiment looks a bit tricky. I don't think the sentiment at the moment supports a wide altcoin season. Certainly, there can always be pumps, but is that really what you believe is an altcoin season? We need quantitative tightening probably to end, so that could be beneficial for the liquidity. And if the DXY goes down as well, that could have a positive impact also on sentiment. And so we have to pay attention to Bitcoin dominance, the DXY, the Fed's steps, and we have to pay very much attention to what Trump is doing in terms of fiscal policy. We've got the monetary policy from the Fed, fiscal policy by Trump. He also can do certain things. I mean, he can't tell the Fed what the Fed should do. He can push for things, but really he has his own things he can do with regards to fiscal policy, spending, and so on that might also impact liquidity in the US. But overall, it is currently the situation is characterized by a lot of uncertainty due to tariffs and still quantitative tightening, and a lot of things are currently happening. So there is a lot of stuff to watch out for. To keep it simple, I would just focus on the charts, but keep an eye on geopolitical developments, especially with regards to quantitative tightening and quantitative easing, and the Fed interest rates as well. They could always be a catalyst, but I believe until really the DXY turns to the downside and we see a little bit more certainty in the markets, also the altcoin charts will continue to look messy. So the quality of altcoin charts is just very poor in this cycle. At some point that might improve, and you will certainly hear it here first. So yeah, that's the update about altcoin season, Bitcoin dominance, and the DXY, and what are the reasons why the altcoins are not performing so well. Again, different environment today. That will change again from tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you subscribe and leave a comment as well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.